Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the New Nation podcast. Thank you for coming in. You know, guys, since I started this audio-only podcast, about each episode has been downloaded about, I can't speak correctly. I can never do that, and I apologize. So ever since I started the audio-only podcast, each episode has gotten so far almost 1,000 downloads each. So we thank you very much for that. Thank you for listening. Thank you for spending some time with me today. And every time I put an episode out, I really do appreciate it. Please, a couple places to follow me before we get into today's podcast. Please, on X or Twitter, you can follow me at Mike of the Nation, and on Instagram, you can go to thenew.nation. Follow me over there. I post some really good memes. There are always some good stories, some good conversations to be had over there, as I'm now just bringing it up. But what do we want to talk about today? Today, we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about Russell Brand. We're going to talk about the red pill community yet again, and then we're going to talk about Protestants being ridiculous, always, all the time. And I think, obviously, let me just preface this by saying, not all of you guys, not all of you Protestants out there. Some of you guys are, pretty based, pretty real. But this one in particular, if you've been following me on Instagram for the past couple of days, I hope you don't claim this guy. But where did I want to start? I wanted to start with Russell Brand because a video that he put out has been making the rounds amongst some Christians. So I'll just play it. I'll just play what he has to say, and then we can talk about what he said, and then we can talk about, obviously, what it means. Here we go.
The reason I wear a cross is because Christianity, and in particular, the figure of Christ, it seems to me, inevitably becoming more important as I become more familiar with suffering, purpose, self, and not self. Reading the Bible a lot more, and as I've told you before, I'm reading Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life. When I grew up, Christianity seemed like it was either really irrelevant and old-fashioned and sort of dusty and sort of incense and sort of, or they tried to modernize it, and it seems just like, right, okay, we're going to talk about Jesus. And like both of those routes seem like, I don't know if there's anything for me. And I suppose it takes a certain amount of adulthood, and it might be different for all of us. For me, it seems that it's taken quite a lot to recognize that I need a personal relationship with God. It occurred to me that if instead of always talking to myself inwardly, I could replace one of those voices with an indwelling God. It says in Galatians, it is our job to die so that as Christ died on the cross, he might be reborn in us. I'm very interested to hear what you think, because for me, my heart is open. Let me know what you think in the comments and chat. Remember, you can join us on Locals as a member of our community.
Okay, let's stop right there. Now, obviously, this is going to tie in with that story and happenings on Instagram that I'm talking about, because as you can hear, he uses that very sort of controversial word in the Christian community, that personal relationship. You heard him say it, right? I need that personal relationship with God. And for Christianity, if you can't see the video, and if you haven't seen the video, he's not just wearing a cross. He's wearing kind of like a modern crucifix where there's a figure of Christ on the cross, but it's not like Catholic crucifixes, which are based and emo and goth, where it's an actual person on it. This just kind of is like a little bit of an outline of Christ. But my favorite comment on this video comes from a guy named Will Spencer. And let me read you what he posted. I hate to be the dissenting voice, but a former A-list celebrity who is married to a Rothschild sitting on a yoga mat in what appears to be a yoga studio, wearing a jacket covered in astrological symbols while sporting a man bun and talking about Rick Warren is not as close to Christianity as you think. Having spent 20 years in the New Age, Brand is quote-unquote telling Christ, but quote-unquote showing something very different. He's co-opting Christian-sounding language to promote a, quote, all-is-one message. The tell is, quote, dying to self so that he might be reborn in us. Reborn? Can I get chapter and verse on that? Quote, my heart is open is also New Age speak, including both his gesture and kneeling posture. You are being manipulated. There will be lots of this in the years ahead. Also, God does not need celebrities. God doesn't need you or me. Salvation is a gift of his sovereign grace and mercy alone. So pray for these celebrities that God shows his mercy to them and grants them the gift of eternal life, and call them to repentance. Not because God needs their, quote, voice or their influence. He doesn't. They need him, as we all do. Speaking of Galatians, I did find these verses, and I wonder if Rusty Rockets caught this one. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh, for these are opposed to each other to keep you from doing the things you want to do. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these. I warn you, as I warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. That's Galatians chapter 5, verses 17 through 21. And I assume that Russell Brand, with a history of addiction, can relate to that, as a sex addict, drug addict. And, I don't necessarily agree with Will Spencer thinking that, we're being purposely manipulated just because Russell Brand was married to a Rothschild or, whatever his background was. I see it almost as an optimist. I see it as Russell Brand possibly getting closer to Christ. But he is right, Will Spencer here, is that it is in more of a new age sort of way. When I got closer and came back to God, it did come in this kind of new age sort of feeling. Alan Watts, Richard Rohr, that type of Christianity where it is focused on like, oh, well, what matters is my relationship with God. And then coming back to Catholicism, it's not only about this relationship, which is important, but it's also the duty that you owe to the church, the hierarchy involved in the church, and then in your family. So, when you talk about this own personal relationship with God, I think you're neglecting the position that you as a man, head of the family, and a member of the church owe to God, if that makes any sense. So, like Will says, I do agree that we pray for Russell Brand, and he talks about not being attracted to either the something like the TLM, which is incense and Gregorian chant, and he's not necessarily attracted to the sort of liberal Christianity or even liberal Catholicism with guitar masses and stuff like that. And I get that. And from an outsider, he's kind of caught between these two rocks, so to speak. So I think he just needs to read more. I think he needs to have Catholics on his podcast. I think maybe getting together with Bishop Barron or Father Mike Schmitz. There are other Catholic apologists who I won't mention, just because I have a personal animus towards some of them, which isn't Christ-like. But yeah, there's some. Listen, I am one of these people that is dead to me type people. If someone wrongs me in any sort of way, even if it necessarily isn't intentional, that person's dead to me. I don't want anything to have to do with that person ever again. And I can be very hard-headed and petty. And I acknowledge that. I admit to that. But let's speak about more of this personal relationship with Jesus, which is something that all the Protestants say. I'm going to play some other audio. This comes from a video with Selena Gomez. Funny story, Selena Gomez once tried to sue me. We can get into that in another podcast. But let's hear this audio first.
It's necessarily that I believe in religion as much as I believe in faith and a relationship with God to me.
A relationship, that's our word. Where have we heard this before?
He engaged in the relationship. I'm convinced that's like the essence.
Relationship.
It's like you develop a relationship with God.
The relationship with you is what you do. They all use the same language. All these celebrities, they don't like religion because religion tells you what to do. It binds you to a commitment. It binds you to an obligation to be obliged to obey.
Right. Obligation, be obliged to obey, going to mass, fulfilling the sacraments. Yeah, they don't like doing that. Because that takes suffering, right? That takes death. And celebrities are so self-involved that they can't allow that death to self. So it makes sense that they use this relationship and they put that relationship on the pedestal while leaving out the obligations. This person who said that, kudos to him, was the reactionary Christian on Instagram. And we'll give him a follow. I like him. I don't know if he's Catholic. yet. This is sort of like a little bit of an ancillary view on his stuff. But what I wanted to talk about was there was this person who commented on this post, and I can't find here. Oh, he posted, Jesus wasn't a fan of organized religion either. And that doesn't make sense when you know that Christ established the church, which someone replied to him, brother, he literally organized the religion. And then this guy, you've seen me, if you see me post on Instagram, his handle is gorilla.rnr. Nope, he preached about faith in God, love and forgiveness. Organized religion is a farce. Taught is more. He preached. Well, preaching is teaching. And then someone was like me when I make things up. And then a lot of the replies are just, dude, he literally established the religion. And what I commented on this was, I just said, quote, I can create a church I quoted him because he was going back and forth in the comments where this Gorilla RNR said, I can create a church in which it has no denomination and still promotes relationship and obedience to Jesus. And to what I'm saying there is, okay, if you're saying you're creating a church, you're essentially, creating the religion. The foundation is religion that the church is built upon. And then this is where the spat about, being totally ignorant about Catholics come in, and he says, yes. And then there's the Catholic Church, which has been corrupted by man. The rest of the conversation went clearly over your head. And I just said, hey, man, the Catholic Church was instituted and founded by Christ. Men sin, but the church, the bride of Christ, is perfect. He says, is that why the Pope, the guy the church follows, is now going directly against what the scripture outlines? Catholicism is what happens when Satan infiltrates the church. Orthodoxy is true worship. Also, a couple of things here. We don't follow the Pope necessarily. We follow Christ. The Pope is Christ's representative on earth. He sits in the holy chair of St. Peter. He's St. Peter's successor. Okay, he's like the main guy. He's the teacher. He's the supreme teacher. I guess is what I could say. I usually speak better than this, but he's the Pope. We don't follow the Pope. We follow Christ. And like I said, the Pope is Christ's representative on earth. Christ gave the keys to Peter, who has then given the keys to his successors. And he's basically our general. If we were an army of the church, the church militant, the Pope would be the general of the army. And, they never provide evidence. I asked, hey, what's the evidence that, the church is going against what the scriptures outline? Also, why do Catholics worship idols instead of Jesus? Why not pray to God, not Mary? Bless her soul. Yeah, Catholics, I'm going to say this as coherent as I possibly can. Catholics do not worship statues or crucifixes. The statues and the crucifixes are representations of Christ, who is worshipped, and then saints who are venerated, given a type of worship called dulia and hyperdulia. Okay, it's different levels of worship. Okay, but I in a way will say yes, I worship Mary in the sense that I venerate her deeply. I give her the hyperdulia, sort of like the highest form of worship under God, because God gets our highest form of worship. Yes, it's like no single Catholic sees a crucifix and says, oh, that's really Jesus, and I'm worshiping that specific crucifix in Nashville, Tennessee, as if it's Jesus incarnate. No, we don't do that. If anything, that's what we do in communion with the Eucharist, right? Because Jesus is physically present in the Eucharist. Why not pray to God, not Mary? Yeah, in a rosary, we do pray to God. It's a meditation on the life of Christ and his ministry. And that's what I said to him. And all he said was, I was simply providing examples as to how the church has been corrupted. Those aren't examples, my friend. You're just making general assumptions. You pray with a rosary, technically an idol, but permissible, I guess. No, a rosary is not an idol. It is it is literally a meditation tool used to count. That's all that is. I don't hold a rosary in my hand and worship it as if it's Jesus incarnate because there's a crucifix on it. That's weird. That's witchcraft. We don't do that. Also, seeing Mary as holy instead of Jesus, What Catholic has ever said Mary is holy and Jesus is not? And he's right. She was the medium for his arrival. Oh, but then he's wrong. Not without sin. No, Mary was sinless. It's what the church has taught for a very long time. Also, it makes sense. Why would Jesus come to earth through a sinful vessel? But no one ever says Mary is holier than Jesus. No one has ever said that. Then there's the Pope, who's ritualistically worshipped. Idolatry. Yeah, we don't worship the Pope. And then when I ask for examples, hey, why do you think we worship the Pope? He's like, oh, because people kiss him. They kiss his ring and they pray to him. Yeah, I kiss my mom because I love her. I kiss my wife because I love her. I kiss my kids because I love them. I would kiss the Pope on the cheek or his ring because I love him and he is Christ's representative on earth. It's respect. That's what that is. It's love. It's very weird. Yeah. So this guy just didn't understand it, and then it's weird because I posted the story with the @ I took a couple screenshots of a couple of those exchanges, posted it in the story with his @ and then his only response to me was, "You're like a Jew." And I said, "In what way?" And I said, "After you tell me how I'm like a Jew, tell me how we worship the Pope." And he says, "Because Jews are delusional and gross." Okay, what a weird thing to say. And also, for everyone who's wondering, this is from 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12. Greet one another with a holy kiss. So literally the teachings of the apostle are to greet each other with a kiss. This guy, some Protestant, clearly missed that. And I told him, and I told people who are in the story, I was like, whoa, guys, let's not kiss each other because then we're going to be worshiping each other. I thought that was pretty funny. And it's just another example of how most, I won't say all, but I will say most Protestants think of Catholics. Some other news, just scrolling on X, a transgender golfer, Haley Davidson, 30, has won the NXT Women's Classic at the Mission Inn Resort Club near Orlando, Florida. He will now be able to join the Ladies Epsom Tour after securing one of the 5 women's places, which I think these are all sort of small tours under the LPGA Tour. And I just said, good for him. I'm tired of it. I'm over it. You know, these dudes have seen a window, have found a lane that they can totally exploit the sports industry, I guess you want to call it. And you know what? We've let them get there. This country has allowed them to get there. So good for them. I don't fault them at all. This guy might not even have a mental disorder. He might not even really be transgender. And when I mean really be transgender, I mean you really do have a mental disorder. This guy was probably just a frustrated male golfer who said, you know what? I see a lane. I see an easy con. I'm going to do it. And guess what? Nobody can tell me that I'm wrong and that I'm doing something illegal. Because all you literally have to do is say you're a woman and you're a woman. That's all you have to do. You don't have to prove it to anybody. You don't have to give papers of your surgical transitions. You don't have to give your psychiatrist's evaluation to people. Doctor patient. What do they call that? I know you're going to be yelling at your screen and at your phones and at your computers, but the doctor-patient relationship, you're not able to disclose what your patients say in therapy sessions. Same thing with your lawyer. But good for this guy. Good for William Thomas. Good for all of these people, all of these psychos who have basically found the perfect con. Good for them. I'm over it of hearing it. And this is a picture of Elliot. I'm looking at a picture of Elliot Page, formerly Ellen Page, who's sitting on top of a bathroom counter, and she's spraying cologne on herself. And it says, reject female stereotypes, embrace male ones instead. And then the person says, gender non-conforming people are the most gender-conforming people on the planet. Yes, because they only conform to either one or two genders. And this was a whole spat with my online nemesis, Dr. Ian Copeland, who still won't tell me what unit of the Army he's in, even though he's a captain in the Army with a PhD and only has one published paper in hypertension when he claims to be a geneticist and all that type of stuff. But he had this space on X talking about how since fish can change genders, that means that gender is not a binary. But everyone pretty much pointed out, well, the fish is going from male to female or female to male. there isn't a third gender that the fish are choosing. So it literally is a binary, because the topic of this space was gender's not a binary. No, it quite literally is. And then we've got possibly, listen, I think I told you before how I'm kind of over this sort of red pill space that just dunks on dumb women. I'm not disparaging women. The women that are in the red pill space arguing against the men are dumb. Objectively, they're just dumb women. But I talked last week, I can't remember which episode, but I did talk last week about Sovereign Bra Chase in particular, saying that he's probably the best representative of the Christ pill people. You know, there's a group, the Christ pill people versus the red pill men, the manosphere. And the red pill manosphere is probably worse than the feminist sphere of influence. And I'm going to read you why. This is a tweet that was read out by Myron Gaines, who hosts that show Fresh and Fit, who might also be a closet homosexual. And this is something he actually tweeted. I don't treat women as equals because they're inferior. And before you say misogynist, ask yourself, why do women want taller, smarter, stronger, and more money? Women only want equality until the bill or danger arises. If you're expected to pay or protect them, then treat them as inferiors. Don't give them equality when it suits them like an idiot. Trust me, they like it that way more anyway. I feel like this is how like 12-year-olds think of women. Maybe. Like how a 12-year-old would think of a woman. Or a 20-year-old. But what I quote tweeted this, and I just said, so why not kill them? If they're, as in women, if they're quote unquote inferior, as you put it, why keep them around? Why would you want to mate with an inferior being? Sorry, but you're retarded. This is a retarded way of thinking. I would never think that my wife is an inferior being or an inferior sex. There are differences between the sexes. Absolutely. There are different things that either sex can contribute positively or negatively to any relationship. But to just flat out say that all women are inferior, I mean, I don't know if this is a sort of a simp position that I'm holding, but it just sounds gay, right? Like it sounds like a gay thing like this. I don't even think it's necessarily misogynistic. I just think it's gay, right? Like this is something a gay guy would say. And it just doesn't make any sense. I'm sure there are like women who are inferior on an intellectual level compared to other women or compared to men, for sure. But there are men who are just as inferior, I would say. So when choosing a mate, all you guys out there, when choosing a mate, I don't want you to discount a prospecting mate, wife, girlfriend, fiance as inferior. I would just prospect it as incompatible. That's it. That's all it is. If you go out on a date with a woman and she wants to be with someone who makes more money, is taller, maybe is in a specific physical shape, that doesn't necessarily make her inferior. It just means that you guys are incompatible. She just has her standards, and her standards might be out of touch with reality, but it doesn't necessarily make her inferior. So yeah, the manosphere, it's kind of out of control. And the same thing with the women who are in that manosphere, who will say the exact same things. They're just as bad. I'm sure, someone pops into your head. She probably gives, a lot of people think she probably gives pearls of wisdom. And I think I'm over that as well. But yeah, the women in the manosphere, I think, are equally just as bad. But guys, again, thank you. The podcast is up and running. And if you go over to The New Nation on YouTube, give me likes, comments, interact with me as much as possible, because every audio podcast is going to be uploaded to YouTube, because we want to try and work the grift again. We want to get sponsors again. We want to pull money into the show so that I can, again, get guests and that I can support myself and my family. I have a new baby, guys. And as I think about ways to support my child, any little bit of it helps. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm just scrolling on X and I saw that I posted a link to the podcast. But it'd be cool to get Jordan Peterson on. That'd be really cool to get him on. Dr. Peterson, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to get on to the New Nation podcast because I've listened to some of your episodes and they're quite good. They put me in a very good headspace. I really do appreciate what you do for men, what you do for Catholics. Oh, Mr. Peterson, I heard that you were possibly discerning Catholicism because your wife prays the rosary. Is she Catholic? Well, she's not really Catholic per se. She does pray the rosary. She gets her closer to God. But, okay, I'll stop it now. I get it. You tell me, 10 out of 10, how is that Jordan Peterson impression? I don't know if it's as good as Tyler Fisher's. I think it might be on the same level, but also, I don't know if this person is a troll, but this person's name on X is Kuba, and I think he just might be a troll, but he posted something that says, I got to read this whole thing, a man shouldn't cook. And then it goes on. Imagine being a grown-ass man who wakes up, gets stressed, and then decides he needs to go shopping so then he can, quote, pre-cook his meals and be ready for the week. You not only waste time by doing the actual shopping and cooking, but you also waste time with decisions related to it. This would include what you wear to the store, the route that you're taking, the food that you're buying, the form of payment you're using, what type of plastic bag you choose, which way you'll cook the food, which way you'll store it. By the time you're actually finished doing all this and making it all, you're not only finished physically, but mentally you've made 1,000 different micro decisions that wasted your cognitive ability, which now takes away from important decisions like running your company or operating your business past $2.89 a month. Why? I think this is a troll. Just because you've seen some steroid freak on YouTube do shopping and cook, you now think it's a good idea. Yeah, it has to be. I thought it was funny. Dude, I just said, who is this guy? I couldn't really, I may not have gotten the joke. Let's talk. I'm just going down my X feed just because this is what I talk about. Someone posted something interesting. Abortion doesn't unrape the woman. Abortion doesn't punish the rapist, and abortion doesn't help the child. Correct. To which someone answered, well, why would you want a walking reminder of your rape? And then the person answered quite expertly. She says, well, do you think that even if she had the abortion, that she wouldn't be thinking about the rape? I feel like rape is a pretty intense thing and that no one just really forgets about it, especially if you're the victim of it. You just don't forget about it. Should I also be saying that? Doesn't that get you kicked on YouTube, or you can't monetize it if you're saying those words? I said it 3 times. I won't say it anymore. Oh yeah, and then Myron Gaines, the co-host of Fresh and Fit, also said another thing, believe it or not, incredibly retarded. Jesus can't save these hoes. He's referring to Sovereign Bra. Chase, I guess, posted a clip of his on from the Whatever podcast, and he said, red pill influencers, women with high body counts are bad. Also, red pill influencers, go get laid as much as possible, sleep around with a bunch of women, spin plates, and avoid marriage because it's a scam. He says it's degenerate, hypocritical, and heavily contributes to the degeneration of the world, which 100% accurate. And then this guy, Myron Gaines, who just can't help himself. Jesus can't save these hoes, and neither can you. You tradcons need to realize feminism is here to stay and isn't going anywhere. Adapt to the new normal or keep getting married by the church and destroyed by the state. Yeah. Christ can save these HOES. I don't know. So, again, red pill influencers are a cancer who need to go through chemotherapy and who need not be spreading retardation across the internet. Yeah, that's it. And we did talk about Nick, right? Nick Fuentes was banned from X again. Well, let's see if he gets back on, right? We want to see if Nick Fuentes gets back onto Instagram. Oh, also, interesting note, I'm going to have on, okay, so there is, let me see, because I don't think I got a response from him just yet, but where is that? Because I just put it up there. Oh, there's a movie that's coming out called Triumph of the Heart. It is a biographical drama about the life of St. Maximilian Kolbe. And there is an Instagram account called Triumph of the Heart where they have made the movie, and now I guess they're holding a Kickstarter to help get it distribution or to put it out there so people can see it. So I'm having Anthony D'Ambrosio possibly on the show this weekend, who is the writer and director of it. And we can talk more about this movie because obviously St. Colby has had a lot of influence as of late. I think a lot of young Catholics, especially a lot of young converts to Catholicism, really do connect with his story. Who he was killed during the Holocaust for offering his life up for other prisoners, and was beatified and then canonized. And so I always thought that a movie with Jude Law playing Maximilian Kolbe would be good, but I guess someone beat me to the punch already. So Triumph of the Heart, follow that. It's just called Triumph of the Heart on Instagram. So definitely seek that out. We're going to have him on the show on Saturday, and then that'll be released possibly on Monday, so a week from now. And that next Monday will probably be the next episode. I'm trying to think if I do another episode this week. Just depends on what happens. And I might do a YouTube live YouTube video at some point this week. So I'll put a link to that somewhere, just because we got to keep the grift going. If I'm going to be using my time to make episodes, I would like to be compensated. And not necessarily from you guys, but from sponsors. But the only way to do that is to build up the audience again and to have you guys consistently liking and commenting and engaging with the content. Oh, well, speaking of content, we all know that Ron DeSantis dropped out of the presidential race. Nikki Haley's still in for whatever reason. We all know that Trump is going to get the nomination, that he will be the nominee. I mean, I'm putting my money on it, and that he will also win the presidency. So no surprise there. People still ask me, so you're going to vote for Trump? No, probably not. Still not going to do it because I have standards, guys. I have my morals. I have to be consistent. So thank you guys for tuning in. I know it's a shorter episode. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I have to speak about or that happened. No, nothing really. All right. Until either YouTube Live or next Monday with the interview with Anthony D'Ambrosio for the Triumph of the Heart film, I will see you guys later. God bless, and go to Mass, take communion, uphold and participate in the sacraments, and be good to each other. Thank you. Bye.